What happens when a narcissist meets true authenticity? Psychologists have long debated whether some individuals seem naturally resistant to narcissistic manipulation, those rare souls who appear untouched by the chaos that usually unfolds around narcissists. They are not necessarily immune, as in possessing some mystical shield. Rather, they embody something profoundly stabilizing: authenticity. When a narcissist encounters such a person, something remarkable and deeply unsettling for the narcissist occurs. Authenticity, as many psychologists describe it, is not a mere performance of honesty or a social aesthetic of being real. It is the psychological alignment between one's inner values and outward behaviors, a state where self-awareness and integrity coexist with emotional balance. Dr. Brené Brown, for instance, defines it as the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Authentic individuals are not flawless saints. They are grounded people who possess an honest appraisal of their strengths and weaknesses, who can sit with their imperfections without collapsing into shame or inflating into grandiosity. They regulate emotion well, not because they suppress it, but because they accept it. This inner balance produces a quiet kind of power. Authentic people are calm not because life has been easy, but because they have learned to live truthfully within it. They do not react to every slight or criticism because their sense of worth is not externalized. It does not depend on validation, approval, or domination. Psychologists often call this internal locus of control, meaning their emotional stability arises from within, not from how others perceive them. That serenity, an unspoken confidence, can feel almost sacred in a world that thrives on noise and performance. Now, imagine what happens when that serenity meets the narcissist storm. The narcissist, whose entire psychological machinery is designed around control, validation, and emotional provocation, suddenly faces someone they cannot move. Narcissists rely on a predictable dance, provoking emotion, commanding attention, extracting admiration, and manipulating vulnerability. Yet the authentic person simply doesn't step into the choreography. They don't chase, they don't justify, they don't explode. They simply stand. This stillness infuriates the narcissist. Dr. Ramani Durvasula and other clinicians who study narcissistic dynamics explain that narcissists thrive on reaction. They feed on emotional energy, whether positive or negative. When confronted with someone emotionally regulated and self-possessed, they experience what psychologists call narcissistic frustration, a feeling of impotence that threatens their fragile sense of dominance. To them, indifference feels like annihilation. The authentic person, however, does not intend to humiliate or expose the narcissist. They are not trying to win. Instead, their lack of reaction is simply a reflection of inner clarity. They see through the theatrics and choose not to engage. For example, when the narcissist tries to hijack a conversation, perhaps boasting about a car, a promotion, or some grand achievement, the authentic person might respond briefly and courteously, "That's wonderful," before returning to the original dialogue. No eye roll, no power struggle, no emotional escalation, just quiet redirection. In doing so, they dismantle the narcissist's psychological weaponry without ever raising a shield. This kind of emotional neutrality is deeply disarming to narcissists because it denies them their favorite source of power: control through chaos. Clinical psychologists often note that narcissists are addicted to emotional turbulence because it makes them feel alive and dominant. When they can't provoke that turbulence, they start to unravel internally. They begin to sense the emptiness that their grandiosity was built to hide. Yet, the authentic person doesn't shame the narcissist for this weakness. They don't expose or confront them aggressively. Instead, they maintain compassion without surrendering boundaries, a psychological stance that therapists describe as detached empathy. It is the art of understanding someone's pain without absorbing it, of seeing their patterns without getting entangled in them. For the narcissist, this kind of interaction is unbearable precisely because it mirrors what they lack. Authenticity exposes their emotional hollowness not through accusation, but through contrast. The narcissist's mask begins to crack in the presence of genuine wholeness, because authenticity does what manipulation never can. It reveals truth without speaking it. For the victim, or rather the survivor of narcissistic relationships, this dynamic offers profound lessons. Psychologists often recommend cultivating authenticity as both a shield and a guide. The more you know your values, the less you'll be seduced by flattery or controlled by fear. The stronger your self-awareness, the easier it becomes to recognize when someone's behavior is about them, not you. Healing from narcissistic abuse isn't about learning to outplay the manipulator. It's about returning to your own truth, again and again, until their noise no longer reaches you. When a narcissist encounters authenticity, they feel something that deeply unsettles them: exposure. Psychologists often describe this moment as a narcissistic collision, a point where the narcissist's carefully constructed facade collides head-on with someone who cannot be manipulated by illusion. Authentic individuals, grounded in truth and self-awareness, unconsciously hold up a mirror to the narcissist, one that reflects everything they've been trying to hide. It's not just discomfort they feel, it's a kind of existential threat. The narcissist's sense of superiority depends entirely on others accepting their false reality. When someone sees through it, their power crumbles, and beneath that power lies an abyss of insecurity they've spent a lifetime avoiding. This is why narcissists often respond with contempt, mockery, or dismissiveness toward authentic people. Psychologically, this reaction serves as a form of ego defense, a way to protect their fragile self-image from the shame that authenticity evokes in them. They may say, "She thinks she's better than everyone," or "He's just full of himself," because it's easier to distort reality than to face the truth. According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula and other experts in narcissistic personality structures, contempt is one of the narcissist's favorite shields. It creates emotional distance, allowing them to reject what threatens their internal narrative. The authentic person's calmness and self-containment become unbearable, not because they are offensive, but because they expose how hollow the narcissist's confidence really is. For the victim or survivor who once enabled narcissistic behavior, recognizing this dynamic can be both painful and liberating. Many empaths, for example, have spent years seeking validation from narcissists, confusing intensity with intimacy. When they finally begin to embody authenticity, learning to speak truthfully, to detach with grace, it often triggers the narcissist's aggression. Psychologically, this shift signifies the loss of narcissistic supply, the constant stream of admiration, attention, and emotional energy the narcissist relies on. Losing it feels, to them, like losing oxygen. Thus, they may lash out, criticize, or attempt to guilt the empath back into compliance. The victim's newfound independence becomes a threat to their illusion of control. But this is precisely where true healing begins. Psychologists emphasize that authenticity isn't just about honesty. It's about integration. It means reconciling the parts of yourself that were once suppressed to maintain peace with the narcissist. Your voice, your boundaries, your self-respect. Each time you say, "This doesn't feel right for me," you reclaim a fragment of power that was once stolen through manipulation or fear. The narcissist may interpret this as arrogance or rebellion, but in truth, it's a sign of psychological maturity. Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion reveals that people who practice authenticity develop higher emotional resilience. They no longer crumble under guilt or shame when choosing themselves. For those recovering from narcissistic abuse, the strategy isn't confrontation. It's clarity. You don't need to prove your worth or explain your boundaries to someone committed to misunderstanding them. The more authentic you become, the less reactive you feel, and that emotional neutrality is what unnerves the narcissist the most. They can no longer hook you with chaos, nor draw you into their emotional storms. Instead, your silence and calm presence echo louder than any argument. As one therapist put it, the narcissist thrives in drama, but authenticity starves them of oxygen. In the end, authenticity becomes both your armor and your light. It doesn't just repel manipulation. It transforms pain into wisdom. When you learn to walk away with grace, you're not running from the narcissist. You're walking toward yourself. And while they may try to smear, mock, or minimize your growth, what truly terrifies them is the realization that you no longer need them to define who you are. That, psychologically speaking, is the narcissist's greatest loss and your greatest victory. What often goes unspoken after such encounters is the quiet aftermath, the emotional echo that follows authenticity's collision with narcissism. For the authentic person, This moment can feel simultaneously empowering and isolating. Psychologists describe it as a boundary awakening. That instant when you realize that living truthfully will not always make you liked, but it will make you free. The narcissist's rejection, though painful, becomes proof that your integrity is intact. Their contempt is not punishment. It's confirmation that they could no longer manipulate you. Yet, for many recovering from narcissistic relationships, this realization arrives wrapped in guilt and loneliness. Years of conditioning, especially from narcissistic parents, teach us that rejecting control equals betrayal. Healing, therefore, requires unlearning the false belief that honesty and self-respect are selfish acts. For the narcissist, the presence of authenticity triggers something far deeper than annoyance. It activates narcissistic injury, a profound internal wound caused by the collapse of their grandiose self-image. According to psychoanalytic theorists like Heinz Kohut, narcissists build their entire identity on external validation. When faced with someone who cannot be deceived, their illusion of superiority begins to fracture. That's why they respond with mockery or smear campaigns, not merely to attack, but to erase evidence of their own fragility. By discrediting the authentic person, they attempt to restore their lost power and silence the cognitive dissonance between who they pretend to be and who they truly are. This is why, as many therapists note, narcissists fear truth tellers the way shadows fear the light. For the victim, understanding this psychological dynamic is crucial. When a narcissist devalues or scapegoats you after sensing your authenticity, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's their defense against their own shame. This reframing helps survivors detach emotionally. Dr. Ramani Durvasula often reminds her clients that narcissists are emotionally allergic to accountability. Your truth feels like poison to their ego, so they'll do whatever they can to discredit it. Recognizing this pattern allows victims to shift from internalizing blame, "What did I do wrong?" to observing behavior with clarity. This is the shame defense at play. That shift from emotional reactivity to psychological understanding marks a pivotal step in recovery. But becoming truly authentic in the aftermath of narcissistic abuse takes time. It's not just about saying what you feel, it's about rebuilding the capacity to trust your feelings again. Years of gaslighting erode self-trust, leaving survivors doubting their perceptions and instincts. Psychologically, this is known as learned self-abandonment, the habit of silencing your own truth to avoid conflict or rejection. Reversing it requires patience, therapy, and compassion. Techniques rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or inner child work can help survivors reconnect with the parts of themselves they suppressed to stay safe. Small daily acts of authenticity, declining an invitation you don't want, expressing a genuine opinion, setting a soft boundary, retrain the brain to associate truth with safety, not danger. Interestingly, as you grow more grounded in authenticity, narcissists begin to sense it long before you speak. They can feel it in your calmness, your refusal to react, your quiet confidence. To them, it's unsettling because it deprives them of emotional leverage. They may try to provoke you to test if they can still hook you with guilt or rage. But when you no longer engage, when your silence carries the weight of self-possession, the dynamic shifts. The narcissist feels exposed, powerless, irrelevant. Psychologically, this is one of the most disarming states for them, because it's the one thing they cannot control, your peace. In time, authenticity becomes your sanctuary. It's not loud or performative. It's steady, deliberate, and deeply self-assured. You stop chasing closure from the narcissist because you realize they cannot give what they've never possessed: truth, empathy, or accountability. And in that realization lies your freedom. The authentic life doesn't guarantee protection from pain, but it ensures that no pain will ever again come from betraying yourself. In the end, authenticity does not destroy narcissism. It simply refuses to feed it. Where narcissism demands reaction, authenticity offers silence. Where narcissism thrives on illusion, authenticity anchors in truth. And perhaps that is why, for all their charm and cunning, narcissists find their match not in power or intellect, but in peace.